The scissors of betrayal. Asterisk. Theme. Bad breakup where someone discovers their partner cheating and exposes them, leading to the cheater losing their job and public humiliation. Asterisk. I always thought love was supposed to feel like standing in front of the ocean. Vast, beautiful, overwhelming. That's how it felt when I met Trevor. I was 25, working as a graphic designer at a small firm in San Francisco. And Trevor, with his crooked grin and magnetic charm, swept me off my feet like something out of a rom-com cliché. I fell fast and hard. He was witty, ambitious, good-looking in a rugged way with tousled brown hair and deep-set eyes that crinkled just right. When he smiled, for 3 years, I thought he was my person, my soulmate. We lived together in a sunny one-bedroom apartment in the Mission District, filled with mismatched furniture that we'd scavenged from thrift stores when we first moved in. Together, on Saturday mornings, we'd wake up late, drink coffee, and watch the city slowly come alive below our window. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew us. But betrayal doesn't shout. It sneaks, tiptoes in quietly while you're busy feeling safe. The first crack appeared on a Wednesday evening. I came home earlier than usual. My client canceled a meeting last minute. Trevor hadn't mentioned plans, so I assumed he'd be at home. Instead, I was greeted by silence. His car wasn't in the driveway, and the apartment felt eerily still. Normally, his laptop would be open on the dining table, papers scattered everywhere. He was an investment banker and always seemed to bring work home. But that night, the table was neat, too neat. I didn't think much of it until I noticed the faint scent of perfume. Not mine. Something floral and cloying that hung in the air like a lie. I walked through every room, checking half-heartedly. The bathroom, the bedroom, the tiny laundry nook. Nothing seemed amiss, except for the smell. It lingered, digging under my skin, gnawing at some primal instinct that whispered, "Something isn't right." I tried to brush it off. "You're being paranoid," I muttered to myself, cringing at how crazy I sounded. And yet, deep down, a seed of doubt had already been planted. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I caught him. And when I say caught, I don't mean stumbled upon it by accident. No, I practically walked into the betrayal like someone stepping onto a stage they didn't even know existed. Trevor had always been good at pulling off the perfect boyfriend act. He'd say all the right things, remember anniversaries, surprise me with flowers on random Tuesdays. But lately, he'd been acting distant. His phone was glued to his hand. He'd flinch and turn the screen away if I happened to glance in his direction. The late-night runs to pick up something at the office became suspiciously frequent. And I could feel the gulf widening between us. One Friday night, as he slept beside me, a thought popped into my head. What if he's hiding something? I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be that person. The crazy girlfriend snooping through her partner's phone. But desperation has a way of making us rationalize the irrational. My heart pounded, and my hands shook as I reached for his phone, careful not to wake him. The lock screen required his thumbprint. So I waited. I pretended to sleep, lying motionless until his body shifted into deep slumber. Then, with the lightest pressure, I pressed his thumb to the home button. The phone unlocked. My stomach dropped. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe a few messages that seemed vaguely flirtatious. Maybe nothing at all. What I found was so much worse. A barrage of texts from someone named Chloe. Messages laced with inside jokes, teasing remarks, pictures. Oh, God, the pictures. My vision blurred as I scrolled. Chloe, a petite brunette with flawless skin and a smile that seemed to mock me from the screen, wasn't just someone Trevor worked with. She was someone Trevor was sleeping with. And based on their exchanges, this wasn't some one-night mistake. It had been going on for months. Months. Rage boiled in my chest. I gasped, slapping a hand over my mouth to muffle the sound. The texts blurred together as tears filled my eyes. I wanted to scream, to wake him up and shove the phone in his face. But I didn't. Instead, I saved everything. Screenshots, pictures, conversations, evidence. Because I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to ruin him. The next morning, Trevor woke up to the scent of coffee wafting through the kitchen. I pretended everything was normal. I smiled. God, how I smiled. And kissed his cheek, all the while replaying every disgusting text and whispered promise he'd shared with Chloe. Keeping up the charade wasn't easy. Every time he looked at me, every time he said, "I love you," I felt like I might explode. But I kept my emotions in check because if I was going to burn him to the ground, I needed a plan. The first part of my plan involved Chloe. It didn't take long to figure out more details about her. She worked at Trevor's firm as a junior analyst. I stalked her Instagram, her LinkedIn profile. Hell, I even found her on Facebook. Chloe was ambitious, smart, and evidently willing to ruin someone else's relationship without a second thought. I hated her guts. But the second part of my plan? That was the masterpiece. I waited until Trevor had another one of his late-night meetings. He kissed me goodbye, promising he wouldn't be home too late. "Don't wait up," he called over his shoulder. His voice casual, practiced. I didn't wait up. Instead, I drove to his office building downtown, parked 2 blocks away, and followed him on foot. It didn't take long to spot him. He wasn't alone. Chloe was there too, standing by the elevator bank. When the doors opened, Trevor rested a hand on her lower back, guiding her inside. My breath hitched in disbelief. He doesn't even bother hiding it anymore. A camera flashed in my hand. Click, click, click. I snapped pictures of them entering the elevator, of his hand lingering on her waist, of the way they laughed and leaned into each other like a couple drunk on infatuation. It didn't matter that they were coworkers on paper. These photos made it glaringly obvious. This was personal. The next day, I put the plan into motion. First, I emailed the photos and texts to a few key figures at Trevor's firm. Not just his boss, but the HR department and even some of his closest colleagues. I also included a note outlining how their extracurricular activities were a direct violation of company policy. Both parties involved are engaging in unethical behavior that could compromise the firm's reputation, I wrote with calculated coldness. The message was anonymous, sent from an email address I created purely for this purpose. I didn't stop there. Oh, no. Chloe's online profiles were next. I anonymously tagged Trevor in scandalous posts about workplace affairs. I sent the incriminating photos to her friends with captions like, "Is this your loyal friend Chloe?" Guess not. I knew I was hitting below the belt. And frankly, I didn't care. By the end of the week, the fallout was catastrophic. It started with Trevor's boss calling him into the office. Trevor came home late that night, his face pale, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He didn't say much, but I could tell something was wrong. The next day, Chloe was suspended pending an investigation. Rumors swirled around the firm about inappropriate relationships, leaked photos, and questionable conduct. Several clients pulled their accounts after the allegations surfaced, claiming they no longer trusted the firm's leadership. Trevor was fired the following Monday. When he told me, I feigned shock. "Oh, my God, babe, I'm so sorry. What happened?" Quote, "It's complicated," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Apparently, Chloe and someone sent photos to the firm. They think we've been." He paused, swallowing hard. They think we've been involved personally. They said it violated their code of conduct. You and Chloe? My voice cracked with just the right mix of disbelief and hurt. No, I mean, he trailed off, looking away. It's not like that. She's just a friend. Liar. I waited a full week before bringing up the texts. When he least expected it. When he was sitting on the couch, nursing a beer, trying to pretend everything was fine. I dropped the bomb. I know about Chloe, I said. My voice cold. Trevor froze. What are you talking about? Quote, I know you've been sleeping with her. I saw the texts. And before you even try to deny it, I also took screenshots. Panic flashed across his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Oh, and one more thing, I added, pulling out a folder from under the coffee table. Inside were the printed emails I'd sent to his firm. I sent these, you know, to your boss, to HR, to everyone who needed to know what a lying, cheating piece of garbage you are. Trevor's face contorted into a mixture of rage and disbelief. You did this? You ruined me? Quote, you ruined yourself, I spat. You deserve everything coming to you. Trevor moved out that night. He didn't bother begging, didn't try to apologize. There was nothing left to say. Chloe, as far as I know, never regained her position at the firm. Rumor has it she left the city entirely, humiliated and ostracized by her peers. As for me, I'm okay. I'm not healed yet, but I'm on my way. Revenge doesn't fix everything, but it gives you closure. And sometimes, closure is all you need to move forward. The scissors of betrayal. Continued. Trevor left that night with little more than a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and rage simmering beneath his facade. I watched him from the doorway as he descended the steps of our apartment building. His silhouette illuminated for a moment by the orange streetlight outside. He didn't look back, not even once, and the echo of his footsteps against the pavement lingered long after he was gone. The apartment felt cavernous when he left, as if his absence had created an unbearable vacuum. The mismatched thrift store furniture now looked cheap and haphazard, the monotony of the beige walls oppressive. For weeks afterward, I felt haunted by him, by us, by the ghosts of moments that once felt so real. The smell of his cologne lingered on the leather couch. The faint indent of his coffee mug sat stubbornly on the dining table. And the bathroom mirror still bore smudges from the mornings he'd shave while humming offbeat tunes. I spent those initial days lost in a whirlwind of emotion, oscillating between rage, sadness, and an unsettling numbness that made me question my own sanity. When I wasn't replaying our arguments in my head, I was consumed by memories of everything I thought we were. I remembered the way he'd hold me after a bad day, stroking my hair and whispering, "I've got you." I remembered the way his laugh used to reverberate through a room like sunlight, breaking through clouds. Had those moments been lies too? Or was there even a shred of truth buried underneath all his deceit? But these thoughts didn't paralyze me. They sharpened me. They focused my mind on the satisfaction of knowing that Trevor's downfall had been inevitable. Living in his shadow, loving him, trusting him, it had all been exhausting. I was tired of being the good girl who always forgave. I wasn't going to play that role anymore. His betrayal had hardened me. And if I couldn't have a happy ending, at least I could have justice. The fallout from the emails reverberated further than I anticipated. After his termination, Trevor struggled to find work in his field. Investment banking was a tight-knit community, heavy on reputation and connections. And thanks to me, Trevor's reputation was in tatters. Companies were wary of hiring someone who had been embroiled in such a public controversy, especially one involving inappropriate relationships with colleagues. The photos and texts painted him not only as unprofessional but as reckless. A liability no firm wanted to gamble on. I knew, through whispers in mutual circles, that Trevor had started working freelance to stay afloat, offering financial consulting services to smaller businesses. He was scraping by, but barely. The mighty had fallen, and I liked it that way. As for Chloe, her departure from the firm was swift and unceremonious. Word spread that her suspension turned into a formal dismissal after further digging into her conduct. She had been reprimanded before for crossing boundaries with colleagues, but it had never escalated to this level. This was her black mark, her scarlet letter, and she fled San Francisco afterward. The city she had once called home had turned against her. I imagined her sitting in some nondescript apartment in a town I'd never care to learn, scrolling through job listings with dread and regret. It was poetic, really. Trevor and Chloe, once drunk on their own arrogance, now paying for their sins in full. It wasn't just revenge. It was justice. One day, as I sat on the couch, finally cleaned of his cologne, I decided to take one last step in my quest for closure. Trevor had left some things behind in his rush to leave. A few old shirts, a stack of books, a small box of sentimental trinkets we'd collected during our time together. For weeks, I had avoided looking at the box, fearing the memories it would dredge up. But now, curiosity compelled me. I dug through it with trembling hands, pulling out faded Polaroids, ticket stubs from concerts, a seashell we'd found on a beach in Santa Cruz. And then I found the scissors. They were ornate, antique-looking, with bronze handles and intricate filigree designs. Trevor had once shown them to me proudly, explaining they were a family heirloom, passed down through generations of his mother's side. They're valuable, he'd said, holding them in the palm of his hand and flashing that crooked grin. Someday, I'll give them to our children as a keepsake. Looking at those scissors now, I felt bile rise in my throat. Children, the life we were supposed to build together. Lies upon lies upon lies. I weighed them in my hand, their cold metal biting against my skin. They were fragile but sharp, a contradiction, much like Trevor himself. At first, I thought about throwing them away, ridding myself of anything that tethered me to him. But no, that wouldn't do. He didn't deserve to keep anything precious. Not the heirloom. Not the memories. Not even his dignity. I slipped them into my purse instead, like a dagger I was planning for later. Months went by, and I began to rebuild. I started therapy, which gave me the tools to process my anger and grief. I poured myself into work, freelancing outside my main job to save up for a fresh start. The apartment, the place I once loved and had felt so suffocated in, became tolerable again after I redecorated and painted the walls a deep emerald green. I filled it with vibrant plants and hung abstract art on the walls, replacing the remnants of Trevor's influence with my own fingerprints. Slowly but surely, the pieces of my life began to fall back into place. I stopped checking Trevor's social media after the first couple of months. The updates were scarce anyway, and I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing I cared. Still, I heard rumors here and there. Old friends would occasionally text me, wondering about the breakup, or feeding me tidbits about Trevor's increasingly pathetic trajectory. Apparently, he had moved into a dingy studio on the outskirts of town and was borrowing money from friends to stay afloat. The golden boy had lost his shine. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had one final chapter to close. Something gnawed at me, a restless energy that wouldn't quiet. I thought about the scissors often, tucked away in my nightstand drawer, an artifact waiting for a purpose. And then, the perfect opportunity came. I ran into Trevor at a cafe downtown one rainy afternoon. Well, technically, I saw him first, sitting at a corner table, hunched over his laptop as if the weight of the world had crushed him into an unrecognizable shell. He looked different. His once pristine suits had been replaced with a wrinkled button-down and jeans. His hair, once immaculately styled, was disheveled. There were bags under his eyes, and he carried himself with a kind of defeated slouch I had never seen before. I considered leaving. There was no point in interacting with him again. I had already exacted my revenge, hadn't I? But then, I remembered the scissors, and I remembered that ache in my chest that still lingered, begging for true closure. So instead of walking away, I marched over to his table, my boots clicking against the tiled floor with deliberate force. "Ella?" He looked up, startled, his voice tinged with confusion. "Trevor," I replied, cold and emotionless. He blinked, looking me up and down, as if trying to gauge my mood. I could tell he wanted to ask about me, about my life, how I was doing, but he didn't. He was too ashamed. Instead, he said, "It's good to see you." I smiled, a bitter smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Is it?" Quote, "Look," he began, running a hand through his hair. "I know what I did was wrong. I messed up, but what you did, ruining my career, humiliating me, it was cruel." I laughed outright at that, the sound sharp and biting. "Cruel? You think I was cruel? Trevor, you slept with someone behind my back for months. You lied to me every day. You made me feel crazy when I questioned your behavior. And you want to call me cruel?" Quote, he opened his mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, perhaps ever, Trevor had nothing to say. I reached into my purse and placed his family heirloom scissors on the table between us. "Here," I said, my voice low and steady. "You should have these back." I thought about keeping them, maybe selling them, but honestly, I don't need them. Trevor stared at the scissors, then back at me, his expression a complicated mix of surprise and shame. "Why?" Quote, "Because you're not worth holding onto, Trevor. Not the memories, not the heirlooms, not anything. I'm done with you." And with that, I turned and walked out of the cafe, the rain pelting against my coat as I stepped into the storm. For the first time since it all began, I felt free. In the months that followed, I moved to a new city, started fresh, and let go of the shadows that had haunted me. Trevor faded from my mind like a bad dream, and while the scars of betrayal remained, they no longer defined me. Revenge had been satisfying, yes, but healing. The slow, deliberate choice to reclaim my life, that was the true victory.